With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days.
How did the US hide its true intentions before carrying out Operation Midnight Hammer? Well, we take a look at Trump's moves and the events that led up to the attack. On Thursday, that is June 19th, the signs were clear that something was up. Now, US President Donald Trump's leave as he directed Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt to announce that he would decide to join the war in Iran or not within the next 2 weeks. As he kept everyone guessing, Trump convened a meeting with his national security advisors the following day, that is on June 20th, where he was briefed about US's attack plans on Iran. Now, before he flew out to his golf club in New Jersey and speaking to reporters, he reiterated his time frame for Iran's decision.
Giving him a period of time. We're going to see what that period of time is, but I'm giving him a period of time, and I would say 2 weeks would be the maximum.
Around midnight on June 21st, the United States began its operation against Iran in secret. Flying B-2 stealth bombers from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, they headed over to the east over the Atlantic Ocean, refueling from airborne tankers along the way. Now, it would take them 18 hours to reach Iran in order to maintain tactical surprise. A decoy flight went west towards the Pacific as part of deception effort. At 5 p.m., a U.S. submarine launched more than 24 Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles against key surface infrastructure targets at the Isfahan nuclear site in Iran. Now, President Trump returned to the White House from New Jersey at 6 p.m., which is less than an hour before B-2 bombers entered Iranian airspace. 40 minutes later, the world saw how U.S. stealth bombers dropped bunker buster bombs at the Fordo and Natanz nuclear site. Now, the entire operation lasted for about 25 minutes before the bombers exited Iranian airspace and began their return to the United States. Shortly after the strikes, President Trump, in a national address, threatened to attack Iran again if there was any retaliation, adding that there will either be peace or there will be tragedy for Iran.
There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill.
Now, for more on this, we're being joined live by Ambassador Anil Tringunay from New Delhi. He's a former Indian diplomat and Joint Secretary for the Gulf and Hajj Division in the Ministry of External Affairs. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the broadcast.
Okay. Thank you.
So let's begin with your assessment of the Israel-Iran conflict now that the U.S. is being overtly involved.
Well, I think this was expected that U.S. will come in sometime or the other, because the basic policy of the United States in the Middle East is to ensure the stability and security of Israel. And therefore, Israel has been in a bit of a dock for some time now because of the Iranian strikes, which perhaps they had not counted for. And therefore, in about 7-8 days' time, it became apparently clear that without the U.S. assistance, it will be difficult for Israel to continue this tirade, while Iran will continue to respond and retaliate despite all kind of protection that Israel had deployed. So it was a very, very critical moment in that sense. Now the question often comes that he gave 2 weeks, and why did it happen earlier? The thing is, it's also semantics, and it is also that he was convinced not by the intelligence, U.S. intelligence, or by his own colleagues, that Iran was still far away from making a nuclear bomb, but by the Israeli intelligence, which was shared by Netanyahu, and of course the interest of Israel in that sense. Nobody wants an Iranian, a nuclear Iran, and that has been the bottom line as far as the United States is concerned. So when Israel started and has determined that Iran would acquire a weapon in 9 days, 9 weapons in about 10 days, 15 days time, they started attacking themselves, which were not very, very successful. Of course, they took out the leaders and they did a lot of damage. But then this is just damage and destruction that has been going on from both sides. It was not decisive. And decisive, it could only happen if the United States intervenes, and then only the war can last longer. And therefore, President Trump, despite good advice from his own people, which he discarded, he went into this war and, of course, taking it at a very different level. And the Iranians are still working out what kind of a response they are going to give. They have gone to the United Nations. They have approached now foreign ministers in Russia. He has been talking and hoping that diplomacy will go. But as they say, the diplomacy has been blown by Trump. Now, in that sense, the problem is that the United States has a lot of bases in the region. It's 40,000 personnel are there. And most importantly, all the Arab countries who are standing with Iran at the moment and have been urging USA and Israel not to escalate it, are also worried. And that is something, and of course, it is a big worry for us as well in India.
Absolutely, sir. And a lot hinges on how Iran chooses to respond at this point. Now, during our ongoing coverage of the conflict, experts from around the world have discussed India's potential role in de-escalation. Now, having said that, what role can India actually play in diffusing tensions in West Asia, according to you?
Well, as you know, that for India, stability and security in West Asia has an existential character. We are dependent a great deal on the oil and gas. We have a great economic engagement. The maritime routes are extremely critical for us. And more importantly, and most importantly today, it is also our 9.5 million Indians who are there, whose security and welfare is of utmost importance. We have seen right now under Operation Sindhu, we are evacuating people from Iran as well as from Israel. And this is something which will become a far greater proportions. One can't even conceive how that will be if the Middle East or the Arab countries, especially the GCC, if it becomes a theater of war. And therefore, at every step of the way, one has tried to diffuse it. In Prime Minister Modi had spoken to Prime Minister Netanyahu. He has also spoken yesterday to President Pezeshkian. Besides, Dr. Jaishankar has been in touch with both the foreign ministers. India has been talking to various countries, especially Russia and others in this. And US, of course, Prime Minister Modi had spoken. He was at G7 also briefed. Now, this is something it will depend on the US, as I say, to stop this war, to carry it forward, because Iran will definitely respond somehow. Because peace under duress is extremely difficult to achieve. And therefore, everybody, both sides would need some kind of an off-ramp. And I believe that India can provide that kind of an off-ramp.
Absolutely, sir. And of course, Iran has threatened multiple options, and it has a range of options to actually respond to these US strikes. But in the latest, Iran has threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz. Now, for India, 2 million barrels of daily oil imports passes through here. But India's Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri, has said that India has enough diversified resources to absorb the shock for now. But what happens if it turns into another protracted conflict, stretching, let's say, several months? Then what can we expect in that case?
You are absolutely right. I mean, the Minister Hardeep Puri has absolutely correctly pointed out India has diversified its imports, not from now, but from the time that Russia-Ukraine war has happened. Now we are getting about 42% of our requirements from Russia directly. But at the same time, it is important that the lanes of communications remain open. Now, Hormuz or Bandar Abbas or Red Sea and Suez, if they are impacted, that will, of course, directly impact on us. And in the longer term, we are going to have a much bigger problem. More importantly, if the war escalates and expands in the region, then our other interests will also suffer a great deal. India has invested a great deal of money, and we have a large number of companies there. There's some, both UAE and Saudi Arabia are our third and fourth largest trading partners. And we have these 9.5 million Indians, I would say. So all that in the proportions of problem for India are very significant. And therefore, we have to work, and we are working on ensuring that some kind of a lull or at least a pause is achieved so this dialogue and diplomacy can take place. And let us hope, much against my hopes, that the United Nations Security Council is able to come up with some kind of a way forward.
Absolutely, sir. And before we wrap up, I'd like to get your take on one more interesting development. Now, just a day after suggesting to nominate Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, Pakistan turned around and condemned the US strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. Now, from this vantage point, what does that say about the absurdity or perhaps the duality of global optics around Trump's latest military moves?
Well, you are right. Actually, you used a very good word, absurd. I mean, and this is something that I think the Pakistan is basically a mercenary state. And it only, it's a rentier state. So it is available for anybody who wants. They definitely have very close relationship with the United States. And let's not discount that. And they have been having it for a long time. They happen to be non-NATO ally. But the fact that President Trump tried to invited General Asim Munir and had him for lunch and all that, and the kind of a statement that came out, about the Nobel Peace Prize and all that. I mean, that's all bunkum. More importantly, Pakistan has always been flagging its nuclear bomb as the Islamic bomb. Let's not forget it. There have been statements from Pakistan that if Israel attacks with nuclear bomb, Iranians, then Pakistan will attack Israel in return. And thereafter, Asim Munir was there. And then at the OIC meeting, they were there, both of them actually, and there they made a statement very different. And so at the end of the day, there were also news that the Pakistani air base was used to attack Iran. Iran and Pakistan themselves have also exchanged, as you know, the fire and missiles on the Baloch elements on both sides of the border. Now, this is something that Pakistan does all the time, but it has found its capacity or some kind of an art of using its nuisance value to its advantage sometimes. But it has been exposed.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the broadcast and helping us navigate the contours of the situation that's developing before us.
Thank you.